Hey folks, Hal Walker at the Walker Law Firm coming to you today with volume number 2 on parole. So the first video we talked about a lot of things, just basically people calling in, having questions about what can my loved one do to get a parole date. So today we're going to skip forward to kind of what happens at the parole hearing itself. So I've got a slide I'm going to share with you right now. When you look at this is a form that the parole board will use to kind of grade the inmate at the parole hearing. When we have a parole hearing, the inmate's going to get a letter from the executive director telling them the exact day they're going to have a parole hearing. And on that day, an attorney like myself or another attorney and family and friends can gather, and the parole board will listen to their thoughts on whether this person should get out, what things they've done to better themselves, and things like that. Well, the parole board is sitting up there and they're grading this individual based upon these guidelines. And when you look at it, item number 1, the severity of the offense of conviction, low, moderate, high. A low is a 0 score, and a moderate is 1, and a high is 2. As you're being scored on this form, you're trying to go with the least score possible. So coming in with a severity of conviction with a low is always good. So the next is the actuarial assessments, and that has to do with the Ohio Risk Assessment System. And personally, I don't know what that means. I've tried to do a lot of research. To me, it's almost witchcraft, Harry Potter-like. Allegedly interviews and such can be done, and based upon answers to those questions, they can put a risk score on an individual to do things that are non-compliant with the law or possibly reoffend. So based upon this questionnaire, they're going to give you a score, and it's anywhere from a very high risk of 5 to a high risk, which is a 3, a moderate risk, which is a 2, or a low risk, which is a 0. The next item on this form has to do with sexual offenders. That's not going to apply to a lot of people that are looking to get out on parole. Of course, some yes, some no, but you can just see for yourself what those look like on that form. Page 2 of this form has to do with institutional behavior. I spoke on the most recent video about behaving, not getting disciplinaries, not getting write-ups, doing things to better yourself. This is where they're actually scoring you on that behavior. They're looking at disciplinaries within the past 12 months, disciplinaries after 12 months involving violence, whether you've had 2 or more disciplinaries involving violence in the last 12 months, or 1 or more non-violent disciplinaries within the last 12 months. And based upon those things, they're giving you a score. Again, the best score is a 0. So number 4 here is participation in risk-reducing programming and treatment. We spoke about that on the other video as well. DOC offers certificates for programs such as substance abuse program and crime bill. Those are some of the things they want to see you do. If you can get to ATEF in Shelby County, Alabama, that's a great place to go. They give you a lot of training there on how to get back into society, but not everyone can make their way to ATEF. And again, on this, they score you as well. Completion of required programs, you've got a 0 score. Again, those are good. Deficient programs with reasonable efforts made to take those programs, again, a 0 score. Deficient programs, no reasonable effort made, they're starting to add some points to you there, 2 points. And again, DOC and Pardon and Parole wants to see the inmate do things that better their position. And lastly, deficient program, unacceptable compliance. That's essentially the person that goes to DOC and does nothing other than sit there, get their time, possibly get in a little trouble, and not take any programs. The next item, number 5, is reentry progress. We talked about that as well. That could be things like these programs. It could be things like getting a GED. It could be things like reaching out to the Arc of Bessemer or the Foundry, some type of halfway program that's willing to take you if you're let out. And then number 6 is stakeholder and community input. whether there's opposition. If there's opposition, there's a plus. And let me tell you about that. Just about every parole hearing that occurs in Alabama, there's going to be a group there called VOCAL, stands for Victims Against Crime and Leniency. They are going to take their opportunity to speak poorly of just about everybody that comes up for parole. They're going to tell the board how they're afraid to let them out. They're afraid of what they'll do if they're let out. I believe they're funded through some nonprofit or grant money, but there's somebody there every day of the week that they have parole hearings. And if your crime has anything to do with violence, you can count on them speaking against you. So opposition is a +2, neutrality is a +1, and support is a 0. Every parole hearing that I've had, except for just a small number, has either friends or family come in support. So, when you're looking at these scores, that kind of throws me, because you're going to have opposition from VOCAL of a +2, but you've got support from the family, so that's a +0. That doesn't really seem to be right. So hopefully this gives you a little information about what they're looking at. Once they hear you speak or us speak, because the inmates don't travel, they will listen to any opposition. They will gather up right there on the spot. And after a discussion among the board members, they will let us know what the outcome is, whether the inmate is going home or whether they are not. So if this information is helpful to you, I'm thrilled that it is. If it is, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, follow this page for more content. Scrolling across the bottom of the screen is our email address. That's absolutely the best way to reach out to us. Can ask us any questions. We represent inmates before the parole board, so we would be glad to speak to you about possibly representing your loved one. If you want to call us by phone, you can do so at 334-329-7325. Because our phones are busy, if for some reason you miss us, please leave a detailed message, including the name and the AIS number of the inmate, and we'd be glad to give you a call back. Have a great rest of your day.